guys, welcome back to my channel. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I am sick again and I'm dying. I'm just straight dying. I'm also having to use my phone as my camera because my camera has officially completely crapped out on me. So that's fantastic. So welcome to Have Yourself a Haunted Little Christmas Day 2. This is going to be part of the Vlogmas series as well, so I'll talk a little bit. If you want to skip forward, I'll put it down in the description below where I start talking about our theme for today, which is Krampus. Prior to actually researching this topic, I knew a little bit about Krampus. Like, I knew that he was basically like the anti-Santa and he looks like Satan. So that's like all I knew. So that's where I started. But first, I guess, just to get into, I have a hair again. Why does this happen every time? And hopefully you can see my highlighter. I don't think you can. Here, I'm gonna pick this up. Part of my Black Friday was Ulta, and wow, when I'm this close, I'm very cakey. Let's back up. Anyway, I got Kylight, which was in quartz, and it's like this really pretty gold tone. Nothing else I'm wearing is new. I'm wearing Portland Lipstick Company in gray, and then I mixed it with Dose of Color Nude Mood to make this like purpley mauve color. And actually it's Portland Black Lipstick Company. I'm not a huge fan of it because it just doesn't feel like your lips can breathe when you have it on. But when I've mixed it with other lipsticks to tone it down or to add in a different color to it, it's actually worked out fairly well. So I'm happy with it, and it matches my shirt. And I feel like if I ever get YouTube famous, I just need to make a shirt that says and because I say that all the time. I don't know why. So forgive me if I'm all over the place. I had a fever most of today and I was throwing up at one point because I had such a bad migraine. There is a lot of makeup hiding how shitty I look. Like, if you had seen me before I decided to do makeup to record this, yeah, I'm feeling a lot better now, but like you can still see like dark circles, and of course smoking out the under eye probably didn't really help me with that, but yeah, it was pretty terrifying, possibly as terrifying as Krampus. All right, so shitty lighting and all, let's get started. As far as Krampus goes, it starts kind of in Central European folklore. Krampus, if you haven't seen any sort of animation or drawing or portrait of him or her, I don't know if it's classified as a female or male. So I'll put a few images over here of what Krampus looks like. But basically it said that there's a lot of variations, but the general consensus is that he's hairy and he is usually brown or black. And he has cloven hooves and horns of a goat, and he has fangs. And so it might remind you, and some of these images might remind you of the imagery of Satan in the beast form. If you've seen the new Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which I can't remember the actual like name of the new series, but the new horror one that's on Netflix, it reminds me a lot of how the beast takes form in that series, is how Krampus is described as looking. It's not entirely clear if it really is the devil or if it's just something that's a demon that looks like the devil, but that's what he looks like. And it only comes around during the Christmas season to punish children who have been naughty. It's kind of literally the anti-Santa. It parallels to St. Nicholas, the whole Santa figure, no matter where it comes from. It's the exact opposite of him. Obviously, Santa rewards the kids who are well behaved. Now in America, and I don't know if this is everywhere, but I know for sure, like growing up, Santa also brought coal to naughty kids. I don't know that that's really part of this whole folklore. In, let's say, like Austria, Bavaria, Croatia, and the Czech Republic, Hungary, Northern Italy, and a couple other places too, Slovakia, Slovenia, all these places that a lot of my family is from, which is what's interesting, is where this all kind of started. And so for them, St. Nicholas really is only there to reward the good. There's no true like origin story to Krampus, but it is pretty clear that it's pre-Christian holiday and it still was around Yule. So kind of like we were talking in the last video about the ghost stories being something that was kind of part of the pagan, I guess you would say, celebration of Yule. Now, still in Central Europe, they do still have parades where Krampus makes a big procession. There's young men that are dressed up like him. Obviously in America, it's taken off a little bit more though because of the horror movies that have come out lately about it.
We heard something on the roof.
The hell's this?
He is the shadow of Saint Nicholas.
It's Christmas. Nothing bad's gonna happen on Christmas.
But this Christmas was darker, less cheerful. And that night, in the darkness of a howling blizzard, I knew St. Nicholas was not coming this year. Instead, it was a much darker, more ancient spirit. The shadow of St. Nicholas. It was Krampus. And as he had for thousands of years, Krampus came not to reward, but to punish. Not to give, but to take. He and his helpers. I could only listen as they dragged my family into the underworld. He left me as a reminder of what happens when hope is lost, when belief is forgotten, and the Christmas spirit dies.
So it's not something that's been consistent in America. I feel like, at least from my perspective, it's relatively new to the scene for us. And in Central Europe, it's been something that's been part of their folklore for a while. Now, another interesting thing is that Europeans have been exchanging what they call Krampus cards since the 1800s. That's something that definitely hasn't taken off in America as a mainstream thing. I'm sure that there's groups of people that do it, but it's definitely something that's still a European tradition. In the cards, Krampus is looming over children. It's usually playful in wording and rhyme. Other times he is portrayed in a more, I guess, almost sexual manner where he's like pursuing women. And again, it really ties in with like how the beast appears, like with the Satan imagery and stuff. So it's not too far from that. Now, what's interesting with the Krampus cards is that earlier versions, he's much more scary and probably more like inappropriate. Whereas now he's more, not necessarily cute, but he's definitely toned down quite a bit into more like this cartoon character. There were some that I saw that like is reminiscent of Powerpuff Girls villains even. And so definitely not as terrifying as some of the images that I showed before. So it's something that we still have in our traditions now. It's just something that started a long time ago. It's an ancient tradition, and it's something that is predominantly European. Now, incidentally, there is something that's called Krampus Day, which is actually on December 5th, and I am ironically recording this on December 5th. It was not planned that way, but the universe aligned so that it was that way. Now, according to the legends, if a child didn't behave, Krampus would show up on Krampus Day. Now, something to clarify about Krampus is what he's said to actually do. According to the folklore, while Santa brings presents and fills stockings, Krampus chases after the naughty kids with whips and chains and has been said to also eat them or take them to hell for a year or enslave them in his cave for all eternity. The interesting thing is that there are a lot of lore books about Krampus, but there's not a lot of like short stories where people have taken Krampus into a role and really like written something about him and what he does. A lot of it is just very fact-based. I did find a few ridiculous books like Goodnight Krampus where they actually turned it into a board book for little kids. You can buy it at Target, which, while it's cute, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm actually going to read you an excerpt of Krampus the Yule Lord by Brahm, and I'll include a link below where you can buy the ebook as well as where you can find it on Amazon. Santa Claus, how vile your name upon my tongue, like acid, hard to utter without spitting. Yet I find myself capable of speaking little else. It has become my malediction, my profane mantra. Santa Claus, Santa Claus, Santa Claus. That name, like you, like your Christmas and all its perversions, is a lie. But then you have always lived in a house of lies. And now that house has become a castle, a fortress. So many lies that you have forgotten the truth, forgotten who you are, forgotten your true name. I have not forgotten. I will always be here to remind you that it is not Santa Claus, nor is it Kris Kringle or Father Christmas or Sinterklaas, and it certainly is not St. Nicholas. Santa Claus is but one more of your masquerades and one brick in your fortress. I will not speak your true name. No, not here. Not so long as I sit rotting in this black pit. To hear your name echo off the dead walls of this prison, why that would be a sound to drive one into true madness. That name must wait until I again see the wolves chase Sol and Mani across the heavens. A day that draws near, a fortnight perhaps, and your sorcery will at long last be broken. Your chains will fall away, and the winds of freedom will lead me to you. I did not eat my own flesh, as you had so merrily suggested. Madness did not take me, not even after sitting in this tomb for half a millennium. I did not perish, did not become food for the worms as you foretold. You should have known me better than that. You should have known I would never let that happen. Not so long as I could remember your name. Not so long as I had vengeance for company. Santa Claus, my dear old friend, you are a thief, a traitor, a slanderer, a murderer, a liar. But worst of all, you are a mockery of everything for which I stood. You have sung your last ho ho ho, for I am coming for your head, for Odin, Loki, and all the fallen gods, for your treachery, for chaining me in this pit for 500 years. But most of all, I'm coming to take back what is mine, to take back Yuletide. And with my foot upon your throat, I shall speak your name, your true name, and with death staring back at you, you will no longer be able to hide from your dark deeds, from the faces of all those you betrayed. I, Krampus, Lord of Yule, son of Hell, bloodline of the great Loki, swear to cut your lying tongue from your mouth, your thieving hands from your wrists, and your jolly head from your neck. Now I'm going to skip forward a little bit just to kind of give you a little bit more of an idea of how Krampus is portrayed in this particular story. In this particular scene, there's kind of a struggle happening around Santa's sack because obviously it can hold a lot of things. But anyway, we'll just jump in. Krampus pulled the sack to himself, opened it, and peered into its smoky depths. He didn't dare insert his hand, aware that the sack would still be open to the last place Santa had used it. Probably his castle, a storehouse, someplace where he stored the toys he gave out at Christmas, someplace where his magic would be strong, where my hand might be caught and I might become trapped. This door must be shut. He set both hands on the sack, took in a deep breath. Loki, aid me. He closed his eyes and reached out, tried to find the sack's spirit, to touch it with his own. See me, hear your master's voice. He felt nothing, nothing at all. Again he searched for its spirit, focused all his will. The cavern and all his surroundings faded from awareness until it was only him and the sack. It's Krampus, Lord of Yule, bloodline of the great Loki. Recognize your lord. Nothing. Krampus gasped and leaned heavily on his hands, breathing deeply and slowly, trying not to succumb to the exertion. He regarded the sack, contemplated its crimson sheen. Blood, he said, and then laughed. His spell is bound in blood, and so only blood can break it. Such should be obvious, but alas, I fear my mind is clouded. He stuck his finger between his teeth and nibbed the tip, watched a droplet of blood form. He pulled the sack into his lap and held his finger above it. One single drop fell onto the sack, beaded upon the plush velvet like a red pearl. Honor my blood, he whispered, and slowly rubbed the drop into the fabric. Nothing happened. Loki, hear me. He waited, and still nothing. Nothing but the sound of his own labored breathing. And when he could stand it no longer, when he felt sure he would indeed go mad, the sack billowed, ever so slightly, like a light breeze was blowing from the inside. A faint draft drifted from the opening, smelling of the wilds of Asgard. And he heard his name, faint and far away. Now, overall, like I said, I really can't find a lot of true stories to just sit and read, but I do think that the story of Krampus is interesting because, at least in America, most of what we're told is that we just won't get presents if we're not good, or we might get coal in our stocking if we're not good. I think that the idea of something that is actually going to come potentially attack you or take you down to hell or into a scary cave, like, that is much more terrifying. Obviously, it's something that's in line with like Grimm's fairy tales, where it's to warn children and to scare them off from being bad throughout the year and to incentivize them in a, or de-incentivize them from being naughty, I guess. But I do think that it's a really interesting story nonetheless. There just isn't a lot out there that's like, here's a story that's about it. You know, we have tons of stories about Santa. We have The Night Before Christmas. We have various variations of Santa, and something that I think is kind of weird actually, like now that I think about it, is The Nightmare Before Christmas would have been like a really easy place to stick Krampus in there, but it just wasn't done. So I think that, you know, there's a huge opportunity for there to be more Krampus stories, and I'm sure that that's why the movies are taking off and why the books like the one by Brom are taking off. But yeah, in the comments down below, let me know if you and your family have ever done anything to celebrate Krampus Day, and if you've ever done anything as far as tell stories about Krampus, if you've told your kids, if you were told as a kid. I certainly was never told about Krampus. I don't have plans of telling my kid about that. But it's not that I'm against it. It's just, I feel like it's a little scary, to be honest. And I don't think that there's already so much darkness in the world. I don't think that kids need more, to be honest. I think as an adult, you can find the humor in it, but I just don't think that it's worth terrifying a kid. I personally would probably not be telling this story to my kid, but tell me if you have down below. Let me know what I missed, because I know that I missed plenty. If you have any books or stories or recommendations about Krampus that you would like to include, put it in the comments down below. Make sure that you like and subscribe for more. And next time, again, for Have Yourself a Haunted Little Christmas Part 3, we'll be talking about Belsnickle. And I will see you then. Until then, stay safe, and don't forget, don't turn out the light.